most critical role that shipping plays in the development and deployment of CCUS is in its flexibility. Shipping is going to be required for those emitters and those stores that are not at the end of convenient pipeline routes, or are not large enough for a pipeline route, or don't have demand either in the long or short term, or sufficiently unseasonal demand to be able to be satisfied by pipeline. So shipping critically really gives a lot of flexibility to the CO2 supply chain.
I think the point of CCS as absolutely necessary to decarbonisation has been established. We don't really need to argue that point, but there's a lot of decarbonisation, a lot of CCS that really has to be enabled by shipping, and it's a critical component of it. And it comes into two areas. One is decarbonisation of stranded emitters. I mean, there's no point in decarbonising half the market if you've got a lot of stranded emitters not close to geological storage, not close to a sink, whose emissions can't be picked up. So that's very true in where we see two key areas where shipping for CCS is going to be involved, Europe and in Asia. That's certainly true in Europe, which is a short sea trade, but it's even more true in Asia, which is just a much larger activity. You might have an enormous cluster of stranded emitters in Northeast Asia. This material has to move to South China Sea or to Australia. Pipelines aren't going to do it. It has to go by ship.
Shipping is critical to the widespread deployment of CCUS and to really build up the industry. At the moment, the first clusters in the UK are based around pipeline and stores. So Track 1 clusters are, there is a transport and storage company who operates both the pipeline and the storage. But very quickly, in Track 2 and beyond, we want to look towards shipping, opening up that market. So shipping will play a huge role in helping those areas, such as South Wales industrial cluster, that aren't close to a store. By enabling shipping of CO2, they will then be able to transport that CO2 round to a store. And the other key market that will open up is cross-border CO2. So by enabling the shipping of CO2, we'll be able to open up that market between the UK and EU.
CCUS is entirely reliant on shipping, whereas shipbuilding is not at all reliant on building ships for CCUS. Therefore, the CCUS industry will have to compete for shipping slots with every other shipping sector.
So I think the shipping industry and the CCUS industry can work together best to deliver net zero by looking at cost. It's critical that we bring down the costs of the supply chain. Usually transportation of goods by sea is very cheap. It's a very small part of the supply chain. That is not the case for CO2. And we really need to work together to bring down the costs of the shipping element. The ship owners can't do this by themselves. The best way we can work together is by looking at things like charter durations, by looking at times, by looking at adoption of different technologies.
I think carbon capture is going to be a huge part of the energy transition. So by supporting the facilitation of the build out, then shipping is playing a role. And of course, within the transportation itself, there are all sorts of technologies around alternative fuels, around energy saving technologies that can hopefully make shipping green through the supply chain for this particular sector.
The key steps for delivering ships in the coming months, I would say, are, well, first and foremost is putting pen to paper and getting orders signed, agreeing on vessel types, vessel sizes, containment types, be that low pressure, medium pressure, high pressure. There needs to be some commonality. I think that's happening. There are a lot of conversations underway at the moment. And when that's in place, the yards are well positioned to act relatively quickly. There is, of course, a timeline. There's a lot of demand for other ship types. But I think in the coming years, it can be actioned very, very quickly. And there are owners very, very keen to invest and indeed have invested and are ready to support the CCUS industry.
So we have a few key steps coming. Firstly, we have a number of ships on order. I think we have up to 8, and they're going to be delivered in this period. Also, the shipyards are busy developing new designs. We're expecting further orders to take place. But again, in the backdrop of a very, very busy shipbuilding market. The shipyards are very active in lots of other areas. And so it's going to be a really interesting couple of years.
To deliver CO2 ships in the next 12 to 18 months, I think really really what the shipping industry needs is certainty from the carbon capture market that there are going to be projects and they're going to be deployed. We obviously have the cluster sequencing program in the UK and there are programs in the EU developing. We have a target of 4 clusters to be deployed by 2030. We're about to potentially see a change in government in a couple of weeks, and so looking at those targets, we're expecting them to remain the same, and the carbon budget is the same. So we know we've got to meet carbon budget 6. So really, this is about rapidly sort of setting out what needs to happen over the next 12 to 18 months, giving certainty to the shipping industry, and that can only be done from the CCUS industry if certainty is given from government in terms of taking Track 1 final investment decisions in September, and also as soon as possible, sort of in July, with potentially with a new government in place to set out the clear steps and timelines for Track 2 and Track 1 expansion. And with that certainty, those order books and that certainty and timescales can be provided to the shipping industry so that they can gear up. They will obviously have competition for their ships and shipbuilding, and so they need as much advance warning and certainty as they can to move forward.